So I think it's the time to get underway again. So the first thing I'll say is that I probably didn't think this through well enough. So each one of my openings to these are similar, stating the problem. I should have realized that everyone would stay in the session, so I'm not going to push you through the four of the same slides that I presented earlier. So maybe we'll spend more time, in the demonstration itself. So let's make this more interactive. I had this slide before. Any questions around this slide? These numbers. I know there was some nod of heads when we stepped through it before. Okay. So the focus of this session, again, we're kind of working through the story backwards. So the three stories I had related to financial intelligence for the project portfolio was how to build a stronger business case and more reliable cost estimates, followed by how to automate financial tracking and drive variance analysis, followed by benefits realization. So we started with benefits realization. We're taking a look at how to do financial tracking now, and we'll end with the reliable business case on Wednesday. So again, we talked about UMT 360, and the only enterprise portfolio management solution on the market, built on SharePoint, seamless integration with Project Server, really helping you to drive those integrated project and portfolio financial controls across your project and program portfolios. Another point to mention is that UMT 360 actually takes you beyond the bounds of project management and project portfolios too, to help you manage the other assets, IT and business assets within your organization. So we can provide the same kind of financial intelligence across an application portfolio, an IT service portfolio, a business asset portfolio. Because ultimately, from an investment point of view, whether it's operational spend, whether it's discretionary spend, everything that's consuming those funds should be considered as a business investment, and we should always look at it from a return perspective, a risk perspective, as well as a cost perspective. So what we're going to do now is look at a demo where we're going to pick up some of the tracking capabilities, cost tracking and variance analysis, change request management, the ability to request incremental funds. And because I've probably got more time on my hands, we may go off-road a little bit and look at ERP integration and other such things that I wasn't planning necessarily to show originally. Sound good? So we're back to the familiar landing page, again, representing these sort of modules or tiles that you saw in the slide earlier. So we're going to look at the financial tracking. And again, to us, it's all about the intelligence and the reports that derive. So, of course, we provide those integrated financial views through the project, which is very, very powerful. But we want to look at the reports that are generated. So the reports that I'm showing you today are out-of-the-box capabilities that just light up as soon as you start entering data. We ship best practices around workflow. We ship best practices around financial structures. So as soon as you start entering data, the reports are going to generate, assuming you buy into those best practices. So looking at a cost status dashboard now, similar to the benefits to a degree, we have the ability, and we'll maybe look at this towards the end. As a PMO, you can centrally administer the reporting process. Now, for, I would say, 80 to 90, 85 to 90% of our customers, that tends to be on a monthly cadence. So let's say the 5th day or 8th day of the month, you're reporting on what happened in the previous month. Does that sound like a process that you guys or your customers are adopting? We do see weekly occasionally, but it tends mainly to be monthly. So again, we'll look at that. You have the ability to centrally administer that, and having done that, this is a report that's being generated at the enterprise level. Of course, you can drill down into different levels and departments as you have them defined. And again, it's just surfacing some standard information here. Committed forecast against organization budget. Now, I didn't talk about that before, but it's very important, and this is where true PFI tools really separate themselves from, let's say, standard PPM tools. It's very important to be able to marry the world of top-down and the worlds of bottom-up. So we have in the ability to look at top-down budgeting. We actually looked at that in the other demo where we were consolidating program-level budgets independent of the project-level budgets coming up. But that can be done across your organization, across your portfolio hierarchy. So in this case, we have the organizational budget being maintained separately, and we can report against that and marry that with the bottom-up values coming from the projects that we've invested in. That would have been more clear if we'd started with the investment planning and the business case. So we can drill down into the different departments. We can see the forecast from the bottom up versus the organizational budget here. Again, a similar story. We're looking at the time phase, cumulative costs here, actuals, budget, forecast. We can see here that the forecast is under the budget at this stage. Now, we can drill down and take a look at what's going on. And again, similar to what I showed you in benefits realization, we want to highlight, the projects that maybe are a concern. Obviously, you can drill down and see a lot of details on all the projects. But across the enterprise, we have some top 10 here that you may want to take a look at. The first ones are projects that are showing positive variance, meaning that the actuals or the forecast is greater than the plan. So what to do here, right? Well, you're either going to commit more funds based on the value of this project to the business, or you're going to consider descoping or cancelling the project. So again, you're going to drill down and take a look at that. The next category is the opposite. It's negative variance. These are the projects where the actuals are less than the plan. And you may want to do something different here. This is after a point in time, if this continues, you're going to take money away from those projects and reallocate to new projects, whether it's giving it to the projects that are over budget or bringing in new projects. And again, I've mentioned Frank LaRocca 3 or 4 times now, and I'll mention him again because this is the genesis behind what he's doing at Con Edison. He's got a dynamic allocation, what he calls a sweep process, where he's continuously looking at these variances and looking to optimize the spend. So take money from the second bucket here, give to the top bucket, or bring in new, continuously looking to optimize that capital spend and maximize the value, the overall business value from the portfolio. So clear on the first the two buckets here? Makes sense? The next bucket here I kind of think of as the sort of sheep in wolf's clothing to a degree. These are the ones where they're currently trending under budget, but the project manager is aggressively reforecasting that they're going to get back on budget, right? And you're going to keep watching those because over time, if it continues to aggressively forecast, you're going to actually have to say, look, I'm sorry, I don't believe you anymore, and you maybe aggressively take money back from them. Because what we tend to see in this situation, that causes a Q4 concern from a budget utilization perspective, meaning that suddenly in Q4 you've got a massive budget utilization problem. And budget utilization, I didn't have a slide on this earlier, but budget utilization is one of the key areas that results in that 46% business value erosion. There's actually 3. Innovation and poor estimating is the first. The second is poor project performance all up. We saw the failure rates and the overspends. And the third is actually budget utilization, where you actually fail to get through the projects you plan to. And these candidates or these projects in this third bucket tend to cause surprises in Q4. So you've got to keep an eye on them. So again, encourage you to attend Frank's session on Tuesday at 1:45, where he looks at the philosophy of dynamic reallocation and looking at these variance metrics to continuously balance that portfolio, optimize that capital spend, drive more ROI from the portfolio, and measure that. Are these useful views, you think? Some nods of head. So again, I clicked on one of the projects that was showing the worst overrun. And we're drilling down into the health assessment reporting tool here. And again, similar to what we saw in benefits utilization here, we're seeing some pretty standard but important views here. First one, cumulative costs, budget actuals forecast. Again, we can see the forecast is greater than the budget. This is where that overrun's coming from. Get a monthly absolute view of that, burn down rates, obviously variance analysis, as you can see. Now again, depending on how you define your financial structure, you can break this down. So we could look at it from an OPEX, CAPEX perspective, depending on how you want to view that. And again, as before, you can go from the high-level metrics, drill down to take a look at the detailed metrics. So I won't go through these, but remember, if I just highlight the forecast here, we can see that our forecast is greater than our budget. This is where this 32% overrun's coming from. But take a look at these metrics down here if I just pause. Remember I was talking in the last session about the snapshot capability, the ability to keep an auditable record of the financials and other metadata as you progress through the project's life. So that phase 1 was the snapshot in the select gate. The phase 2 was the snapshot coming from the second funding approval, which is the plan gate. And you can see now, at least for this project, we're compare and contrast how accurate they were from their estimates at that point. From the first stage, we're actually 142% over, and the second stage, 132% over, right? So again, this is start of the intelligence you start building up. You know, after you've done 1 year of this, you can start looking at your organizations, even individuals, to look at how good they are at estimating based on the actuals coming from the project. So again, let's drill down. We're now, you can see graphically through the workflow status, we're in the execution phase. What I expect to see here then is the cost tracking views, the cost forecasting views, similar to the estimating coming up. Notice here the benefit tracking is not showing, just the way this demo is being configured. It's not shown until evaluation, but I was asked a question in the break around can that benefits realization timeline be earlier? No, you have projects, you have programs that start accruing benefits before they're completed, and the answer is yes. You can start the benefits, bring the benefits view, tracking views in at any point. So I won't go back to the business. Well, I will. I'll just show you the business case review again, but we'll just look at it from a cost perspective. So here we have the phase 1, phase 2. We've asked the variance analysis, and we can see here our costs increased, our benefits actually went down, which is impacting the overall metrics. Again, this is just a report summarizing the business case and the evolution of that business case. And similar to before, once you move into execution, we lock down your budget. We're not going to let you change your budget once you're in execution. The only way you can do that is through governance-approved processes, raising change requests. So this is the budget that's been locked down, and as before, we see the concept of financial amplification. As you start to move through the project's life, more and more financial information is needed. Start high level and move through. But again, from a cost tracking perspective, similar to the benefits tracking, we have the ability to track, estimate, track, and reforecast on any financial structure that's maintained in the tool. So here you can see, different to the benefits, we're actually tracking this on a monthly granularity. And again, what's going to happen here is, depending on your cadence, let's say when you open that financial status reporting period, you can integrate with our integration tool with, let's say, SAP or Oracle Financials, and pull that information in so when they open it, it's there, right? And then they can start accruing additional actuals for the period that's not coming from the committed, as well as reforecasting the cost. And remember, once submitted, we have the archive periods here too. So similar, the cost forecasting is key. We can capture the remaining costs. Oh, there we go. So the remaining costs for the project, we can't go back and change past periods, and that's going to drive our variance analysis as I showed you before. Now, when we were looking at this particular project, it was over budget, so we may want to look at raising a change request. Now, once I've completed this report, I simply submit it, and based on the governance workflow that's defined, that's either going to be routed for approval, or it's actually going to tell the PMO that report has been completed by the PM and it's locked, and now you can start building reports. So as a PM, you can see, or as a PMO, you can see which reports are outstanding and when you're going to generate your monthly status reports. So let's take a look at raising a change request. I mean, this project, if we want to grant the extra funds, we need to know how much. So there's a whole change request module here that allows you to simply come and create a new change request and capture the additional funds and changes to the benefits or other metadata being maintained in the system. So looking at time, I'm not going to have a huge amount of time to go into that in any detail, so I'm actually going to cheat. So rather than raising a change request, I'm actually going to copy information dynamically in the tool. So I'm actually going to copy the forecast table in my tool, my forecast data, to my budget table for future periods, which, when you think about that for a while, that actually means raise a change request. But the tool says, look, there's no way I'm going to let you do that, right? That budget's locked. I'm going to raise a change request on your behalf. And we should look here at the review. And here we'll see a change request has been raised, which is actually going to house the additional funds required for that project. And we're not going to have time to walk through this, but it's going to be routed to approvers, and you're going to approve that through the standard approval capabilities that come in SharePoint and Project Server. So through your My Site, through the approval section, and so forth. This demo needs to be updated. It seems to be the administrator or everyone can approve this, which wouldn't be the case in reality. So that's how you would submit a change request and how you'd manage that change request. Of course, you can drill down and look at the details behind that change request too. The new absolute total, you can drill down and look at the difference. Remember, everything can be managed, broken down by allocation centers in different currencies as you need. So I think we only have 4 minutes left. So I think that's where I will pause in this demonstration. So any questions on what we just saw in the demo? Go on then, Tom.
Long after the project's done, the program's closed, is this still tracking? Let's say you're on a 5-year payback or something like that. Is it still tracking that information?
Repeat that question again. So there was...
My project is done, the program's closed,
Yep.
but there's still time for the return to come back and update the financials.
From the benefit or from the cost? Or both?
Both.
Yeah. So it depends. So the beauty of this is that we adhere to sort of, we have a different financial timeline for any of the financial structures that you maintain. Now, the out-of-the-box structures that come are cost and benefit, right? But you can define more as you need it. So we can look at the scheduled timeline coming from Proj, right? And we can make a decision. My cost timeline is going to inherit that, or it's going to exceed that. My benefits timeline is going to start at some point within the project or program's life, or it's going to start at the end. So you literally manage the timeline for these things independent of the schedule. And so, yes, can you have, one of our previous demonstration environments actually had the concept of one-time costs for a project versus recurring costs, which again would impact that payback timeline. Questions at the back? Yep. So it's a good question. So there are 3 ways to receive that information. The first is the easiest. You manually enter it, right? That's obvious. In those financial views, you can manually enter any information into those grids. Sorry? Yes, it's all based on the SharePoint infrastructure, right? But there are views on top of Project Server. This is a project in Project Server, which in turn is a SharePoint application, obviously. And just like administering any of the web parts in PWA or Project Server, you would enable these views when you need them within the right stage in the governance workflow. So the first way, manually enter. And we see that a lot in the estimating portion of a project's life, right? Now, when we look at tracking, 9 times out of 10, that's going to come, the actual data, the committed data for that period, let's say the month, is going to come from the ERP system, right? SAP, Oracle Financials, homegrown, it doesn't really matter to us. So we have a data import module that allows you to pull in that information. That's part of the financial status reporting process that the PMO would administer, right? Simply open the report, let's say the 8th day of the business month, reporting on the previous month, pull in the information from the financial system, as a project manager or person responsible for doing that status report, I would then come in, capture my accruals if needed, right? Because maybe you knew more money was spent, and then submit that report, but having updated my forecast. So where can the forecast information come from? It's either manual, which is not ideal, or, of course, we integrate with Project Server, for resource assignments. So we can pull in any resources, whether it's cost, material, human, based on the resource assignments, whether that's being managed in a resource plan, whether that's being managed in the web-based schedule, or whether that's being managed in Project Pro. So you get to choose how the data how and where the data is going to come from. And can be a combination of. I have a question in the back. Yes. So we have the like Proj, we have the sort of base install that comes ready to go, ready to receive your input and configuration based on your own unique requirements. We also provide a best practice kit, which includes full configuration, workflow, forms, financial structures, everything I showed. This is basically the kit in action, and of course the reports. They're all important reports. So we looked at a few reports today. There are, I know Vlad will correct me, there are probably like about 20 reports available at different levels today, project, program, portfolio. It's significant in terms of the amount of effort that goes into that. Yes. So UMT 360 works on 2010, works on 2013, both SharePoint and Proj. I'm going to say yes. Let me just replay the question to make sure I understood it. So what we tend to see is obviously the system of record providing the committed costs coming for that period, right, from the ERP system. And then you have the ability to add your accruals. Now, the way I showed it configured today was I simply would overwrite, as you saw. There was one actuals column. I could come in and update that. But it's also possible to maintain your committed, and maybe use a different vernacular, committed versus your accruals, and you can compare and contrast. Now, if you want to push that back to the ERP system, you can. That's going to be a little bit of customization. But I can look at committed versus my accruals per period, manage them independently, and look at the differences. But it's not set up in that way for this particular demonstration. Any other questions? Well, I really appreciate you guys attending. Again, by virtue of, if you got a stamp for the first session, you don't really need a stamp for this session for the UMT passport. I encourage you to attend our other sessions across the learning experience. So we have a number of we have a company Nielsen presenting today, later today. It's Tremendous Tuesday for us tomorrow. Literally all our sessions are scheduled for tomorrow. So we have 5 customer sessions tomorrow. Have a great session from Donna Fitzgerald and Gartner talking about where PPM is going in 2014 and some of the key trends you should look at. We're going to go a deep dive into the product later on Tuesday. Plus, we're going to come back on Wednesday and look at how to automate the business case. And we're going to actually go beyond the scope of projects and look at application portfolio management within SharePoint and Proj. So thanks for attending, and we'll see you at the booth and other sessions.